Good day and good deeds. Welcome to the We Do Good podcast. I'm your host, Charles Dame. I'm joined here today by my good brother from the St. Lucie Firefighters, Serge Greene. Serge is a firefighter paramedic. He's a man on the front lines, a responder, a devoted father, local entrepreneur, that's for sure, and an avid fisherman. Boy, you should see his backyard. Whether he's on a rescue call or he's out on the water for the Heroes for Habitat tournament, again, don't forget about that Heroes for Habitat tournament. That's a pretty cool event coming up here soon in September. Serge is a heartfelt, gritty guy that's ready to do the right thing for other people. Serge, welcome to the podcast, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for that introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll kick off with a few questions and get things rolling.
Okay.
So one of the things I was wondering about is what drew you to the world of firefighting and paramedics?
That was a long journey. So let's see. I guess starting out, I've been with my wife since I was pretty young, 16, 17 years old. We've been together. Her dad was a firefighter paramedic. I kind of got into that family, into that community. So I kind of knew about it then. Had some experiences early in life, and I think that kind of led me there. But it was a long road. I went to college, did other things, worked a job for a big retail company, and just realized that I didn't want to have a desk job. I didn't want to, be behind a desk. I wanted to be out there doing things, helping somebody, having an impact on the community. And that's kind of what ultimately led me there, I think. Yeah.
That's awesome. Where did you go to school? Were you a local boy here in Florida, or did you go somewhere up north?
Yeah, no. So I grew up in Port St. Lucie, born in Fort Pierce, Florida, so right up the road here on the Treasure Coast. And we went to UCF right out of high school. Like one of those things, it was literally 3 weeks after I graduated high school, maybe not even a month. The University of Central Florida said, hey, you're pretty good in school. Your SAT score is not so great. We'll let you in summer B.
I'm feeling you.
Yeah, we'll let you in summer B. So
I joined the Marine Corps. My SAT score wasn't that great.
It was close. I almost did. My dad talked me out of going and taking the ASVAB one day in high school. But So my wife and I both got accepted to the University of Central Florida in Orlando. We moved up there. I went up there, like I said, a couple of weeks after high school. Moved up there, worked for the same retail company I've been working for down here, and kind of got lucky and, got a few promotions and dove into that world of business, and still did school, part-time, and did a few internships doing civil engineering, and just, decided, hey, I can't sit here and, work on software and sit behind a computer all day and that sort of thing. It was a tough decision. So moved back home here about 3 or 4 years into it, 3.5, 4 years into it, and got married and, decided to go down a different path.
So it's crazy how life kind of takes you on these little journeys until you find out what it is that you're really meant to do.
Yes.
So
sure.
What was it that happened while you were on your journey in life? What was that moment you kind of knew that this was going to shape the direction you were going to go, and that being a firefighter paramedic was what was in your blood?
Well, I mean, like I mentioned, my father-in-law was a firefighter paramedic for a long time, and I had an experience. My wife and I were coming back from Orlando with my dad, driving down the highway. I had an experience then. Bad car crash right in front of us. Got out. My wife and I, kind of sketchy situation being on the highway and a lot of things going on. Semi-truck was on its side, another car with some lady in it, a few other vehicles up ahead of us, and we kind of just stopped and helped out. And I didn't know much at the time. I don't think I'd even been in EMT school yet at that point. And I think that was kind of the defining moment, really, if I were to come up with something. There's some stuff that happened in my childhood, obviously.
Oh, when you were a kid, you had some experiences that might have helped mold the direction. I kind of had that too. Mine was a little different. I had when it came to the Marine Corps when I was a kid, I used to absolutely love going out in the wood. I had this great backyard where we could play Army and all this kind of stuff. And we would go in the back and we would take sticks that were shaped like guns, and we'd be out there in the rain and in the creeks,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
catching crawfish and acting like we were, you know, at war and in battle. So, you know, I can always think back to, you know, the little things that you did when you were a kid that kind of bring out that direction you go later on in life you weren't expecting. Do
Yeah.
you have anything like that happen?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, from the military standpoint, my dad was military, my grandfather was military, and my dad was Army.
Oh, he's a hua.
Yeah, oh yeah. He was Army. You know, got drafted into Vietnam. Never ended up going to Vietnam. Went to Europe instead. Army Security Agency. My grandfather, that sort of thing. But I think growing up, you know, defining moment. We had a house fire when I was younger.
Oh, well, that'll do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think so. We were out of town. I was about 10 years old, maybe, and you know, we got back home, and there was all of our reptile tanks. Our, you know, my sister had some snakes and that sort of thing, and you know, that was out in the front yard. Small kitchen fire. They were able to put it out. But you know, we weren't able to stay there. The house was pretty much smoke damaged and pretty rough at that point. Luckily, my dad had, you know, kind of saved us some money and had was working on building a house, and we were like, you know, everything was ready to roll with that. We were about to move. So
It's almost like timing worked out.
yeah, yeah, it was one of those weird situations where it was, you know, there was a blessing on that for sure, but we had nothing to move there. So we went and stayed at our grandparents' house, my grandparents' house for a night, and then the next night we just got air mattresses at Walmart, and you know, went and set up on the floor at the new place. And I kind of vividly remember. It's funny. We ended up moving back into that house, my wife and I. After we came back from college, we were young. You know, we were 20, 21 years old. We had just gotten married. And we were living with my dad, and I was thinking when we moved in, like, we actually have a bed in here this time. You know, I'm moving back in, and there's not an air mattress. It was kind of one of those funny, like, you know, moments that you reflect back on. But yeah, I think that coming back to that house fire, from being out of town and seeing what had happened, and you know, wanting to have that. You know, not realizing it in the moment, but later on in life, wanting to have that moment, you know, to where you can help someone else out with that same sort of situation. I think that might have been a defining moment. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how things change and things happen, and when they do, it makes such an impact on us that you know, like I said before, later on in life, it really comes back to lead you in the direction that you're meant to be in. I know you've had a lot of other things going on in your life. You had told me a story once about some things that happened with your child. It was a pretty, I don't mean to pry, but it was a pretty unbelievable, or actually I should say just an amazing story.
Yeah.
About how really good organizations that are out there to help people do some amazing work. Would you mind sharing that story with the people that are out there listening to the podcast?
Yeah. So my first son, he's 12 now. Rough pregnancy for my wife. He was born premature. Didn't have enough surfactant in his lungs. Had to be intubated. Wasn't sure if he was going to make it. At one point, the doctor came in and said, "Hey, we might have to send him down to St. Mary's." We were here at Martin Memorial, and ended up pulling through. And then it was right before I became a firefighter. So he was born a month before I got hired on the fire department. So he was in the NICU, that sort of thing. And, you know, at that point, didn't have a ton of funds. You know, I was in between professions, had kind of quit, and this was all going on with him. So we had a ton of hospital bills. And, you know, the Martin County, why am I drawing a blank on the name of it right now?
Healthy
Healthy Start. Yeah.
Healthy Start?
Healthy Start, Martin County. Yep.
Yeah.
I apologize. So Martin County Healthy Start came in.
That's
and,
okay. Healthy Start, Martin County. Healthy Start, Martin County.
Yeah. So yeah, they came in and they really helped out a lot. They, sent us questionnaires, come by the house and check on him, right after he was born. We really didn't know what we were doing. Obviously, we were new parents, and that whole process was huge. And we never really, I think, started donating and really supporting that organization until a few years later, and we reflected back on it. And we were like, wow, that was huge for us. That was big. And we tried to kind of get involved. My wife and I, am saying we tried to get involved in organizations that help single parents or the people in the situation that we were in. Younger couples, because it was a stressful situation. My wife worked at the hospital at that time as a nurse. So they allowed us to stay in a room at the end of the ICU maternity ward.
Oh, where your son was.
Where he was, yeah. And it was kind of like hey, don't tell anybody about this, but you guys can sleep down here at the end of the hall, and you can come into the ICU, and you can check on him all hours.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was huge. And so I thank Martin Memorial for that at the time. And now moving forward, Healthy Start, we've had some friends that have done a lot of events with them, and we've been huge supporters of that. And the Dancing with the Stars event they do here. Last time we talked, I talked about a friend of ours that we've been friends with since high school that ended up doing the Dancing with the Stars event. Well, now her husband, a good friend of mine that I work with, he's now doing that Dancing with the Stars event.
How
so
cool.
yeah, he just found out a few weeks ago that he's going to be doing that event coming up. I don't know the exact date. It's sometime in the next 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, well, what a great event. What a great opportunity for them to do something positive for the community.
Huge,
a lot of people don't know this probably about you, but it's pretty amazing. The philanthropy goes back in your family, quite a ways. You and I actually met through you reaching out to me through the idea of helping my organization through philanthropy. And, it was amazing what you've done for us, what you've done for our organization has been huge. But if you tell us a little bit about your past, your grandfather, and how that philanthropy got started.
Yeah. I think when I was about 18, we grew up, doing events at the YMCA, the United Way, local charities and organizations that my grandparents, Harold and Jeannie, they support these organizations, but they wanted an organization where they could go there and see what was going on, and they could participate. They could make sure that what they were donating was going to the right cause. They could really have an impact on the community instead of an organization with a huge overhead and things aren't really getting done the way they should be. And there's a lot of those organizations out there. There was back then. So they started a charitable trust back in the early 90s, I think. And I became part of it when I turned 18 and came to me and said, hey, you want to be a trustee for the charitable trust? And I knew about it, but I didn't know the scale at which it was. I'd go to these United Way events or to the YMCA and volunteer and help out. And I started at that point when I was 18. And they ended up giving away a couple $1 million here in Martin County to these charitable organizations. But their biggest impact, I think, was they were just the anonymous people that would show up and do the work and have fun with it and make sure that things were really what they wanted. And that's a big part of it, I think. You can donate, and that's great. But getting out there and getting involved, just a couple hours a year or a month, is huge. So
yeah, it makes an absolute enormous difference. I know for the organizations I'm involved with, or the other organizations that I help, or people that I help, going out and being involved with the organizations, being there as a volunteer and helping. And a lot of the times is almost more important than the actual money.
Yeah, absolutely.
The organizations really need people that are willing to dig in and help them provide the services that they're trying to provide to help the people they're trying to help.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy. So, on another subject that I know you absolutely love to talk about and you enjoy, fishing.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
recently you threw out some lines in the Habitat for Fishing tournament last year,
Yeah.
and that was a really good time. You guys, I think you even won some trophies,
Oh yeah.
and some money.
Yep.
But it
Yep.
was really great to do that. What brought you into fishing and doing that? I know you got a boat in your backyard. What brought you into that world?
Um, so that house that I mentioned earlier that caught on fire, there was a lake, a giant lake behind it. And I'd fish there just as a kid, reeling in big bass on DOA shrimp lures, believe it or not. DOA shrimp
You gotta
lures.
love DOA.
Yeah, not even a proper lure for the fishing environment. Freshwater DOA is a saltwater lure in freshwater, but
That's another
um,
philanthropic guy. I was fortunate enough recently, with the Angler Action Foundation,
uh-huh.
another organization that's great. I was fortunate to be at an event that Mark was at, and he
Okay,
actually
cool.
spoke there live. He's really good friends with the director of the Angler Action Foundation,
Yeah.
and got to go out and meet him, spend some time at his house. He gave me a couple lures,
Oh,
and
very
stuff
cool.
like that. I gave them to Charlie, so Charlie immediately went up to the lake and started fishing with him.
Yeah.
What an amazing base of knowledge Mark has and DOA Lures has, in the fishing realm.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, that was 1994, so I mean, that business, I don't know how old it is, but it's, impacted my life for the past 25 plus 30 years, So,
Catching
yeah,
fish on DOA Lures for
catching fish on
25
DOAs.
years.
Yeah. And then, after that, just saltwater fishing, enjoying that, and then having the ability to have a boat in the backyard now, and just diving into it. I'm by no ways a professional fisherman or anything like that, but by no means, I guess. But I've got friends I work with on the fire department, get a little bit of tips here and there, and go out and get lucky. And that's kind of what happened with the fishing tournament. We went out there and we hit it early. We were trying to win that the snook slot. And we couldn't land any snook early on, so we went offshore, and we ended up winning. I'm trying to think, aggregate, snapper, grouper.
Yeah. The kids were super excited.
Yeah. That was huge. The kids were super excited. They fished the whole tournament with us. In fact, I think my oldest one reeled in a big hogfish that we caught that probably helped us win it. Yeah. So. It was a good time.
What kind of things and fishing does so many cool things. I look at golf and a lot of the different things that we do.
Yeah.
Ways to bring integrity and honor and teach lessons.
Yeah.
To my son or to other kids or people that are around. What kind of things do you find you get to instill inside of your kids through fishing and the fire department and the things that you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, they say teach a man to fish and a liar is born, right? No,
It's this big.
Yeah, exactly. No, getting out there and getting away from the things that impact the kids on a daily basis, whether it be electronics or being tied to a device or something like that, and getting out there and seeing that there's more out in the world, I think is huge, because that's how we grew up. I mean, we grew up. You got locked outside the house and you don't come back for 8 hours.
And if you needed water, there was a
hose. Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
I think that's huge. I think that kind of being able to get that dopamine and reward pleasure center from something other than an electronic is huge for kids. It's huge for their competitive nature. It's huge for their general masculinity, and then it's huge for their respect for the environment, their respect for nature, and that's kind of what I try to drive in my boys. They're up in Tennessee right now with my in-laws, and they're sending me pictures every day. Hey, we were riding out on the ATV, we were shooting a BB gun at the target. And I think a lot of that's lost, unfortunately, nowadays, and we try to bring that back, and I think that's a big thing with my boys, to try to make sure that they experience that, at least to some extent. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Switching switching gears on you a little bit here. You do we talked a little bit about some different things that you do. One of the other things you do is you are an entrepreneur. There is no doubt. You are out there always hustling, always creating something. You and your wife as well.
Yep.
She's quite the entrepreneur as well.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what you guys do on the entrepreneurial side and what kind of things you have going there.
Yeah. So my wife and I, a couple of years ago, I'd say about 5 years ago, kind of pre-COVID, she was kind of, done with the corporate structure of working in a hospital as a nurse. And she decided, I'm going to take some time off, connect with the boys, with our kids. We were moving. There's a lot going on. She did that for about a year and a half. Just didn't have she worked as a nurse for 13 years and decided to, stay at home with the boys, take care of the home, take care of us moving. The transition in our life that we were going through was huge. And then at that point, she said, you know what, I think I want to go back to work, and this is exactly what I want to do. And we kind of partnered with a wellness clinic, and we're doing IV therapy there. And, that's been huge.
What's the name of the clinic?
PSL Health Center. PSL Health Center is the name of the clinic. Great clinic up Portsmouth Boulevard in US 1 area. And, we were going there as patients.
You guys are rated like 5 stars on Google. So, there's no doubt. And, there's not like one review. There's a lot of reviews.
Yeah.
So the PSL Health Center in Port St. Lucie, that's the spot you want to go if you're looking to get chiropractic work done, IV therapy treatment, massage therapy. What else do they do?
They do aesthetics, Botox, functional medicine, kind of a one-stop shop, just to kind of help you feel better, really, and get away from that pill for everyone type scenario that you kind of maybe used to going to a general doctor that sees thousands of patients.
I'm in the VA. I get a pill for everything.
Yeah. I've got a couple of VA guys that come in and visit me, and I hear the stories. Yeah. So that kind of opportunity presented itself to us, and we've been in there for a while, and we love it. And there's a lot of good things happening there. So it's positive for sure.
Yeah, so all the service that you do, and especially with the fire department and that type of a world, paramedic side, I can relate to some of that stuff. What would you say you carry with you out of that mindset from the fire department? What is it you carry with you and you bring into your entrepreneurial type of the world or your business?
That's tough. I obviously, the skill set of IV therapy kind of cross over to the fire department. That's one thing. That's just a skill set. But as far as like being able to be relatable, you in the fire department, you meet people. Generally, you meet people at their worst time. And it's tough. You need to be compassionate. It's stressful. And compassion and stress combined are a hard thing to balance. Sometimes, when you're out there in the field in the fire department, you need to be stern with somebody, but you need to find a compassionate way to do it. And that's tough. And that coming into what we do, as far as IV therapy and wellness for people, I see it every day. I take care of elderly people on the fire department, and things from a nursing home or at home, and they're on 15 or 20 different medications, a medication to fix the medication, to fix the side effects from the medication, and that's a huge battle that we have in this country, and I think that's something that we're trying to fight on the forefront, try to find alternative therapies that are beneficial, whether it's, IV therapy or detoxing or gut health or, peptide therapy, whatever it is, that you can do aside from what we see every day that's just not working out there in the community. So, yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things I've noticed working with a lot of firefighters from different counties, which I'm fortunate to get to meet you guys and hang out with you. It's amazing how that esprit de corps is kind of similar to the military. It seems to be like the police department, the fire department, the military. We all have like a similar way of doing things.
For sure.
One of the things I've noticed, though, about the fire department more than anybody else that I've run into is the side hustle, right? That's what I would say. Almost every firefighter I meet, Once they've been at the fire department for 4 or 5 years, you start to talk to them and they're like, I'm starting to work on my side hustle.
Yeah.
I've got friends of mine that work for the fire department. Some of them put fence posts in.
Yeah.
Some of them work like you do. Others are starting their own real estate businesses. They're just doing everything. What kind of advice would you give to your fellow firefighters that are a little younger, that are now starting to realize, oh, I've got 3 days off in a row, or I've got a couple days that I don't have to do anything. Let me start a side hustle. What would be some of the advice you'd give to them about starting that side hustle?
Well, it's a balance. It is a balance. You can get out there and hustle hard. We've all been there, but you've got to maintain that mental health aspect, obviously. And find something that is rewarding for you. Find something that you don't just go to for the money necessarily, but something that's rewarding. Because you have to find that balance between the two. And as far as the side hustle goes, we have 2 days off, but we generally work a 48 to 56 hour work week, so it's a lot. Some weeks, like this week, for instance, I might work 80 or 90 hours between the fire department and side jobs. So finding that balance is huge. And finding something that's rewarding. So those two things, and then once you start a family, obviously you're trying to work for that family, and the balance becomes even more important.
Yeah, I think that's what it probably starts to factor in there at that point, where the working on your mental and emotional stress levels and trying to deal with those different things.
Yeah, for sure.
What's some of the ways you've learned over time to cope with some of that emotional stuff?
Well, as far as there's a few different aspects to that question, I guess. So you have the mental aspect, obviously.
Yeah.
So coping with that is tough. Rationalizing it, I think, is the best way to cope with it. You have this calling to this profession. Somebody has to do it.
Absolutely.
Somebody has to do it. It's something that is tough to do, and whether it's a higher calling from a higher being, something that
God is good.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that you're meant to do from that, or or some other calling or some other aspect. Whether it's that or, the physical aspects of it, getting enough sleep at home, balancing out life, nutrition, making sure that you're doing regular blood work and your supplement levels are good. That all those things come into play. Substance abuse is a big one in the fire service. I was just at a Florida Professional Firefighters Conference 2 weeks ago in Palm Beach Gardens, and I was talking to somebody from the IAFF Center for
International Association of Firefighters. That's a great group of people right there. Always trying to do good stuff. Always trying to look out for the guys' mental health and the gals' mental health and doing the right thing by them.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've got a facility up in Virginia, and I was talking to somebody from there, and then that's one of the big things. Hey, make sure that you're working on talking to somebody on a regular basis. Make sure you're able to talk to your spouse on a regular basis. You don't want to tell them exactly what's going on necessarily. You don't want it to impact them as much, but you want to be able to communicate. And I think that's a big part of it. So it's communication, it's physical aspect, it's staying functionally fit. A lot of guys can go out there maybe and lift some heavy weights, but also work on the agility and the things too.
Absolutely. We in the Marine Corps, if you became a fat body, there were some serious issues. You had to do a lot of extra PT really fast. We found out pretty quickly that if you couldn't stay physically in some type of shape, usually your mental health usually followed that difficulty right down the drain. Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty crazy.
It's tough.
So in this and different things that we've got happening, I'm going to bring this kind of to the end, and the kind of the final question that I kind of ask people at the end of each one of these podcasts. And you've covered a lot of different things, but what would you say is the one thing, the one good deed, that one moment that changed you in a direction or a path that made you who you are today?
That's tough. We touched on a few things.
Wasn't supposed to be easy.
Yeah. No, I bet. No, we touched on a few things. As far as being a trustee on the charitable trust and doing that aspect. That's impacted me a lot. We touched on that car accident where, it kind of led me down the path to say, yeah, this is what I want to do, this hands-on approach of being a paramedic and a firefighter. And I think that it's kind of honestly, it's a culmination. Like, I'm one of those people that I try to live life and not reflect much in the moment. And then later on down the road, you're sitting down having one of those, mental kind of reflection thought processes. And it's kind of a culmination of those things as far as one good deed goes. And to try to pinpoint it is tough. To be honest. But, as far as in my career, maybe as a firefighter and paramedic, I can pinpoint that situation that my wife and I were on the interstate where, we helped somebody and waited for the fire rescue to show up. I can pinpoint, being raised a certain way. I can pinpoint, my dad was a very charitable guy. I can pinpoint what I did with my grandparents and their charitable trust. But as far as that goes, I think it's just experiences that we have in life, So all those things are kind of the answer to your question. So,
Well, they absolutely made you out to be a good dude.
Appreciate it, man.
That's for
Appreciate
sure.
it.
So listen, thanks again for joining us today, Serge.
Yeah.
Thanks to our listeners out there. Thanks for listening to the We Do Good podcast. Don't forget to be kind, be good. Do one good deed today. Whatever you're out there doing, try to catch yourself up. Try to do one good thing for somebody else. And I'm Charles Dame. This is the We Do Good podcast. Thanks for paying attention to us, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.